LSU season about 2 weeks away, and I want to look ahead to a segment of time in the season for LSU that will be critical. I'm calling it the defining stretch of games for LSU's season. It's 4 games, bam, 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 that LSU will need to win if it wants to win a national championship. If they don't do that, I imagine they'll falter and eventually crumble like a chocolate chip cookie. So this was interesting because there's some big games towards the end of LSU's schedule kind of just sprinkled in there. You know, at Bama, home against Texas A&M. Those aren't stretches, though. Those are individual games. This series of 4 games right here, I wanted to make it 5, but we'll just go with 4. You will know how good or bad, how special or not this LSU football team will be this season. So here we go. It kicks off in late September, the first game, home game against Arkansas, a team that played LSU very tough last year. 13-10, the final score out in Arkansas. Not a fun game to watch. A lot of sacks, not a lot of offense, obviously not a lot of points. Some interesting things about this game. The home team has lost 3 straight. LSU's at home this year, so going based on history, they're supposed to lose this game. On top of that, the last 3 games have all been really close. They've all been decided by 3 points or less. So coming out of the non-conference slate where LSU will play Florida State and then just some other teams that they should beat, this is going to be a really difficult test to get into SEC play. A team in Arkansas that fought you tooth and nail last year. It's going to be a tough game. One where LSU's offense really struggled last year. Just 8 of 15 passing for 86 yards, and they allowed 7 sacks in the win. Not going to have the ability to put up those numbers this year and win this game because Arkansas is dynamic. They got KJ Jefferson back at quarterback, Raheem Rocket Sanders, one of the best running backs in the SEC, back in the backfield alongside Jefferson. Defensively, they got very good linebackers and a stacked DB room. So that's going to be a very tough game to get into SEC play. Moving on, the next game after that, 1 week later, is a road game at Ole Miss. Some interesting tidbits about this series. The away team, in the last 10 games, just 2-8. 1-9 against the spread. So the team that's having to travel for this game has not played well, obviously, in the recent past, and that is LSU this year. Now, the Tigers, this may have been one of their best games of the year last year. They upset Ole Miss, a top 10 team at the time, right here in Death Valley. The offense was unreal. 252 rushing, 248 passing. That's the balance you want from this LSU offense. And they parlayed that, carried that momentum into an upset victory against Alabama 1 week later. So this is what I'm saying. This stretch of 4 games is where you get Uncle Mo on your side, Mr. Momentum there. And you need to carry him into these big games. So this stretch of games, Arkansas, Ole Miss, you pick up wins in those 2, you're rolling into these final 2. And those final 2 are this. Back on the road again the next week, October 7th now. We're into October. On the road at Missouri, a place where LSU lost in the COVID season in 2020. So they haven't had success there necessarily before. And this Missouri team is really solid. And they've been solid at home for the past couple of years. 8-4 against SEC West teams at home. LSU fits that description as an SEC West team. This year, I'm really high on the Tigers. The other Tigers. A lot of people aren't. But I think Missouri's going to pull an upset. Maybe it's this game. Obviously, we hope not. But they're so good on both sides of the ball. I mean, really solid. 29 points per game on offense they're supposed to average this year. That's per Phil Steele, and he's usually really accurate with these projections. 25 points per game allowed on defense. So, on both sides of the ball, there just aren't that many weaknesses. They're top 40 in all defensive position groups, according to Phil Steele. And they've got a lot of returning production on offense. At least 8 starters. Brady Cook's back at quarterback. They have a 5-star receiver they're trying to work into the mix a little bit more. They've got talent. So that's a tough game. Arkansas, Ole Miss, Missouri, back-to-back road games there. And then you come back home to play Auburn, another Tigers team. This Tigers team coming off a bye on October 14th. This series, the away team, has won 3 of the last 5. LSU won there last year, and that wasn't a very pretty game. The Tigers were down 17-0 at one point, scored 21 unanswered points, shut out Auburn in the second half to win. But that was an Auburn team that was led by Brian Harsin, the head coach who's not there anymore. Now it's Hugh Freeze, and I think this team is primed to pull an upset this year. Freeze was at Liberty, previously coached at Ole Miss as well. He turned around that Flames program, and I think he's going to come into Auburn and quickly change the narrative of what that program does. His offense, his scheme, tough to stop. And he's got some good players on both sides of the ball to implement that scheme. Defensively, I don't have many questions on the offensive side because Freeze is the offensive guy. They've got Peyton Thorne at quarterback, Michigan State transfer, a lot of playmakers as well. The big problem, I think, was defense last year, and they've got defensive talent. They really gave LSU some problems in this game. One-on-one coverage, stacking the box, getting pressure on Jaden Daniels. They got a top 10 secondary this year, top 50 defensive line and linebacker units, and that defense is just stingy. But it's back at home for LSU. So let's wrap this all up. The 4-game stretch that will give you an early indication in late September, early October at just how good and how high this LSU team could fly and how high they could climb this year. It's home against Arkansas, September 23rd, at Ole Miss, at Missouri, home against Auburn. You go 4-0 in that stretch, we might be talking about a special team. You falter in there early in the season, not so sure. Last year, we'll finish with this, LSU was 5-2 through 7 games, 2 losses. You got to hold on to that second loss as long as you can in this college football playoff era. So I want to see where LSU is at through 7 games this year. They win that opener against Florida State in the non-conference? Good. That's a game you could lose. That's a toss-up right now. And then roll. Go into this stretch, win all 4, set the definition for what you're going to achieve this year if you're LSU. Let's see how good the Tigers are through 7 games, and then we'll talk about what else they could accomplish in the Final 5 and then the postseason.